Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Milligenics. My name is Sensei, and I am here with my good friend,
Master Roshi.
Master Roshi. And we are here to discuss, as promised on our last episode, the victim mentality. But before we move forward, please make sure to break that thumb off that like button if you like this episode. So now, moving forward with our episode. Have you ever thought to yourself that life was not on your side? Have you thought of it as, why is everything so hard in my life? Have you asked yourself, why me? And why doesn't anyone understand me? And if you have, this is because perhaps you have, or someone you know might have the victim mentality. A victim is someone that feels powerless and is therefore unable to take appropriate actions to resolve situations affecting their well being. So, being powerless is a learned behavior originating usually from repeated negative experiences. Maybe it's things that happened in your childhood, or maybe experiences that happened after your childhood. A lot of times can come from loss of jobs. It can come from divorces, lost opportunities, lots of regrets. And because of that, now you are afraid of taking new risks. So the victim mentality can be understood as a repetitive negative way of thinking, such as, I screwed up again. Every time I try to do this, this happens. Every time I try to do that, that happens. And because of it, what you have done is that you created a point of reference of your past that doesn't allow you to grow towards the future. Uh, Master Roshi, have you ever experienced or otherwise known anybody that may have exhibited the victim mentality?
Yes, I think in actually reading some of these attributes to the victim mentality, I almost can relate to some of these. It's actually pretty fascinating in terms of what, the beginning of it is as opposed to the ending of it. So it says here that the ending of it is that it produces adults that feel entitled and demand being taken care of. I'd have to think a little bit specifically about people in my life that have resulted in that sort of behavior. But I do see that there's definitely attributes here that have, in my opinion, the way I see it, and I may be off in terms of like what this definition is, but I feel like it's people that are sort of trapped in their own being, in their own environment. So, yeah, for example, one of my cousins, I feel is that way. She's been living in the same sort of place, and it's repetitive, like you said. You see sort of repeat behaviors where they end up, for example, being with like the same sort of boyfriends, right? And there's no growth, there's no development, there's no marriage. Those things don't naturally happen as they should. So also alcoholism, I feel is also like one of the ways that people can kind of cope with that in terms of feeling like a victim. So yeah, there's a lot of attributes that I see here that I also see my own family and friends. As you're going through this podcast, I'll think a little bit more specifically about who those people are and what those behaviors are.
Yes, it comes from, it comes from a negative way of thinking, damn it, I fucked up again. How can I be so stupid? Those comments that we think don't mean much to us, it means a lot. I believe we have about maybe 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. Is the average to my understanding. And about 90% of them are usually negative. And if you're not aware of this, so imagine if 70% of 90% of 70,000 words are negative, where you continue to tell yourself that you're stupid, that you continue to tell yourself that I continue to screw up, what do you think that's going to happen at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the year, at the end of a decade, because that is how long these things take a hold of us. All right. So these individuals, because of that repetitive behavior that may have happened for perhaps even decades, um, they feel like they're not responsible for their experiences. They feel like it is someone else's responsibility to fulfill their needs. It comes from a person who got stuck in a stage of development. Okay, because when our challenges arise, those are opportunities for development. And when we shy away from addressing those challenges, then we become victimized. You know, um, Master Roshi, just to give you a quick example, I myself, about 15, 18 years ago, uh, developed the victim mentality. And it didn't happen overnight. It happened through repetitive behavior. Okay. One thing that happened to me, I lost my job during uh, during 9/11. I was working at a good place, at a good company, making some decent money, and I lost that opportunity. Soon after that, I lost my home. I lost my wife. Um, and soon after that, I lost my home. Soon after that, I lost my car. So within a 2 year span, I lost a lot of things. And that is when the victim mentality grew stronger. It grew stronger through my lack of confidence in myself because every time I thought I did something, something bad happened. And because something bad happened, I then began to take less risks because I thought that everything in my life was bad. So, what I needed to do is create a new way of thinking so that I myself can get out of that victim mentality. And I'll tell you this, Master Roshi, it is not easy because I am mentally strong, but from time to time, as a human being, I guess I become a victim of my own way of thinking. So it is up to me every single time, the same way I manage my diet and I manage my checkbook, I have to manage my thoughts and I have to manage my emotions. Uh, when people don't think highly of themselves for a lengthy period of time, imagine the kind of mental abuse that you are actually articulating to yourself every single time. You know, if you come across a challenge and your first emotion is anger and resistance, as well as resentfulness for other people's accomplishments, that is one way you need to start looking inward. When you have these symptoms, you need to start looking inward. So that way you can create the right attitude towards your challenges as you're moving yourself uh, outward. Um, do you have anything to add to what I just said, Mr. Roshi?
No, I just want to say I think, I appreciate the fact that you're sharing that and getting so personal with the audience. I think there's definitely a lot of people out there that probably can relate to having some of those feelings that you did. I mean, you had sort of, one after the other kind of domino effect happen to you. And I think that also happens to a lot of people as well. It's not isolated to one thing, it's just a culmination of factors, that contribute to you feeling that way. You just feel like, man, this just happened to me and then that happened to me. Personally, as far as me goes, I haven't really been in that situation yet. I've experienced loss. I've lost my father at an early age. Um, I've lost some other people in my family as well, but never in a span, of such a short amount of time, and not having to, luckily, be on the streets or homeless shelter or all those things. But I can definitely understand. I've seen that in my community, and I know that that happens all the time. So it's not like I'm oblivious, right? I think that's a whole different aspect of it. Now that I'm not sort of in that environment anymore, I'm still conscious of it because that's where I came from, and I'll never forget where I came from. So I think that talking about this stuff, Sensei, is helpful because it will hopefully reach out to a lot of people and identify a lot of the issues that maybe they're experiencing, but they don't know how to, again, express those. So I think this is going to be really helpful to a lot of people today that we're able to talk about some of these things that maybe they're feeling or they see other people feeling as well, and how we can be able to overcome those issues.
Yeah, unconsciously, these negative self images are the building blocks of our personality. And everyone constructs a personality through our thought process. So we are the architects of our personality. Yes, before when we were kids, our parents were the architects. Absolutely. But after we get to a certain age, it is no longer our parents' fault. We need to take responsibility because the victim mentality lacks responsibility. They think that everyone else is responsible except them. So at one point, you need to become courageous and take responsibility and create a new set of core beliefs to allow you to get out of that victim mentality. Subconsciously, we all we ever do is we work on repetitive behavior. We're always on automatic, and if you're in and whenever a challenge comes, and automatically your reaction is something that is triggered by anger or resistance, as opposed to creating a calm demeanor so that you can accept what's happening and coming up with best possible solutions. That is when you're able to redeem yourself from that victim mentality into a victorious mentality. It is normal for us to avoid harm. It really is. We don't. Who wants to go towards harm? No one does. And it is also normal to approach rewards, and it's also normal for us to attach to others and have others attach to us. So people with the victim mentality are unable to fulfill these needs, and they become precarious. All right, and what makes them feel good is when they revert back to an infant like mentality, all right, where others are responsible for their thoughts, where others are responsible for their actions. And by doing that, they're actually manipulating others to make them feel bad about not helping them. And they're masters at it. I have come across those individuals that, but it's not my fault. I need money for this. I need money for that, because it's not my fault. And when it comes to managing your money, and at the end of the month, you're able to come up with rent because the trigger made you buy things that were unnecessary. You need to take responsibility and realize that it is your fault, and not to be negative, but when you realize that it is your fault, we are able to take on responsibility and creating actions to get out of that victim mentality. One of the things that I always like to tell people is that you have to start off small. Okay, it took decades for you to create a victim mentality. It's going to take maybe another decade to release yourself from that victim mentality. And we have to be aware of the of some of our words and our actions, because we might be creating the new generation of victims. One of the things that I was told when I was a kid was, why are you always so bad? Why are you always so bad? Stop being bad. And I didn't know what I was doing wrong. It was never told to me. I was just told that I was bad. but I was never told a specific reason why I was bad. And it got to a point in my life that I was like, well, you know what? If I'm going to be blamed for being bad, I'm just going to be bad. All right. I became a victim. I became a product of my environment. And as parents, I see parents doing this. Why are you misbehaving? Why are you so bad? Why are you so stupid? I even heard things such as, why are you such uh, to a 4 year old, a 5 year old, which baffles me that a parent will say that. And when you hear this, when you're 4 and 5, when you're when you're creating your personality, guess what's going to happen when you get to be 10 years old? You're going to be you're going to let others take care of you. You're not going to have the responsibility to take care of your own particular needs. So, one way to get out of that victim mentality is to create accomplishments. Example, attainable accomplishments. Okay, because everybody wants to make a whole lot of money. That's great, but how about maybe getting a job first? How about maybe attending a school first so that it can give you the skill sets that you need in order to make more money to get to your end result? So one of the things that I tell people is create a small goal and reward yourself with it. Example, if you're overweight, right, and you say to yourself, every time I try to go to the gym, it's raining. Every time I try to work out, this happens. Every time I try to eat healthy, for some reason I'm unable to buy this product. And what you can do is create small goals. If you want to go to the gym for an hour, don't go for an hour. Work out for 1 minute, 2 minutes.
Sensei,
After you work out, yes,
hate to interrupt you, but I think this is a good opportunity before we get into how we can help other people. I think it's
yes.
important, and I think what's great is that you were able to share where that hardship came from. Where that victim, sort of those transgressions that happened to you early on. But I think what before we can help other people, I think they're gonna want to know how were you able to help yourself, right, through that period, that 2 year window. How did you get through it? How did you come back from it? What you talked about restructuring yourself, building yourself back up. Walk me through how you did that step by step, if you could.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I might have shared this with your master sensei that there was a point when I was into bodybuilding and powerlifting, and I was I was in great shape. But after I developed my victim mentality, I became overweight, and I went from a 27-inch waist, weighing 225, or 27-inch waist, just to give you the thickness of the strength that I had. I moved on to a 40-inch waist, and with the same weight. So I didn't lose weight. I didn't gain weight. I kept the same weight. It just got distributed differently. And I remember when I went to buy these 40-inch waist pants, and I saw the size of them when I opened them in the at the store. I just it was like a rude awakening, and that's when I realized that I can't continue to increase my size, my pant size. I need to take control because I was never a 36, and I moved on to a 36. Then I moved on to a 38, and now I was moving on to a 40, and I couldn't see myself moving on to a 42. So and this is when my healing began, Master Sensei. And just like when I was about to get into my topic, I began with um, I began with working out 1 minute a day. I didn't put any resistance. All I did was stretching for 1 minute. And after I stretched for 1 minute, I used to make myself a good, healthy breakfast as a reward. I did that for about a week, and then I added to 2 minutes. And after I added it to 2 minutes, I continued to reward myself with healthy foods. Okay, not with soda or a burger. You don't know. Wow, Jose, that was a good job. You're gonna eat a nice lean meat with a great salad to reward yourself on this awesome task. And from there, I moved on to 5 minutes. And I remember when I went on to 10 minutes, at that point, I started incorporating push ups because I couldn't do a push up. I used to do 100 push ups in less than 1 minute. And I went from doing 100 push ups in 1 minute to, to not being able to do three. And I remember pushing to three, and it was the hardest thing I could do. And remembering that just a couple of years back, I was pushing 160 seconds. I couldn't believe it. But it went from 5 minutes, right, 10 minutes to half an hour. Once I got into a half an hour, I said, I'm gonna join a yoga school so that it can continue to be, so I can continue to explore ways where I can reinvent myself. I didn't want to do weightlifting yet because weightlifting used to make me very aggressive, and I wanted to have a little bit more of a peace of mind, and because of it, this is where I began to my journey to yoga, and from day one, yoga back 10 years ago, I think I discovered yoga. Uh, it was a wonderful experience, and I've been doing it ever since. And now I can do an hour, 2 hours. There are days when I work out for 6, 7 hours, where I work out. I do my routine with yoga accompanied by resistance. And then after that, I'll go for a 5 hour hike. And after I do my 5 hour hike, I'll go and go bike ride for a while. And that's when my day feels fulfilled and complete. But it's all started with 1 minute. You want to start a book, don't think of reading the entire book. Focus on one page at a time. Read one page today. It's okay if you fall asleep. I understand you haven't used that brain muscle in a while. Tomorrow, you'll do it again for another page. But if you focus on saying, I'm going to read this book by the end of the week, by the end of the month, and then you're unable to finish it, guess what happens? You fall back to the victim mentality because then you're going to say, every time I try to read something, this is what happens. I never get to read it. But if you're able to at least read one page, you can say to yourself, wow, Sensei, that was a good job. You were able to read one page. Maybe I can push 2 pages. And you can do this one page at a time. You always hear this all the time, one step at a time. And that's what you need to keep in mind. It is one step at a time as opposed to keeping the end result as the finish line. The end result can be the fact that you finish one page. That's it. That's your end result. Don't focus on the book. And tomorrow, the second page. That's it. And on and on and on until you're able to read 2 pages, 4 pages, 10 pages, 20 pages, and on and on and on. And you continue to reward yourself. And now you're able to read a book. You're able to work out for an hour. Now your confidence begins to build. Sometimes, Master Roshi, I feel like life is almost like a boxing match. Okay, you might have the heavyweight champ uh, lose, right? The heavyweight champ lose. This is you losing to life for whatever reason. Something happened that didn't go according to plan. You got you got knocked on your ass. Life beat you that way. You got knocked on your ass. All right, and what do these boxers do? Do they do they retire? No, they go back and fight, but they fight a bunch of nobodies. They don't go to another heavyweight bout. They fight a bunch of nobodies so that they can develop the confidence for the next heavyweight bout. And that's what we need to do. If life beats you on your ass, okay, fine. Maybe you're not ready for the next heavyweight bout, but you need to start creating some goals. You need to start winning some fights so that when the next heavyweight bout comes, you're able to get through it. So, understanding that the values of the victim mentality focuses on feeling comfortable because that's comfort kills drive. Our country right now, it is, we are just filled with abundance. We basically can have whatever we want. And because we can almost have whatever we want, and life has become so comfortable for us, that the smallest amount of discomfort kills our drive. And for example, let me explain this to you, Master Roshi. Example, you might say, I need to go to school. I'm going to school. All right. And the moment you wake up and you see that your apartment is cold, let's say, and it's 3 degrees outside, and you need to get up to take a shower or to do whatever it is that you need to do, you might think to yourself, let me stay here a little bit longer. Let me stay in this comfort zone a little bit longer. And then you might oversleep, which then can make you be late, which then can add to you losing another great opportunity. And then you might say to yourself once again, why is this happening to me? When in reality, you should have taken into consideration that your journey is to be uncomfortable and be rewarded with comfort. But it doesn't grow from comfort to greater comfort. It goes through uncomfortable situation to then add comfort as a way to reward yourself. So by understanding that being uncomfortable is part of your life, you can then create solutions or better yet, create values to push through those uncomfortable feelings. I think I may have said this in our first episode, Master Roshi. Um, life is always going to be a struggle. All right. And if you understand that life is always going to be a struggle, you can position yourself in a better light. Okay. You're a married man. Life is a struggle to be married. I'm a single man. It's a struggle to be single. It's a struggle to go to school. It's a struggle if you don't go to school. It's a struggle to hold a job. But it's a struggle also if you don't hold a job. So at the end of the day, we need to choose our struggle. Okay? We need to understand what our struggle is and not complain about it. When you complain, you take no responsibility. That's what happens when you complain. But if you don't complain and you understand that this is what life has put before you as your next lesson, you create solutions. And this is also where positive versus negative thinking comes in, because negative thinking might say, you know what, I'm not doing it. Positive thinking says, okay, I have a challenge. How can I push through that challenge? So now with that said, what do you think might be another way for you to push through these, um, to push through from the victim mentality to a victorious mentality?
So, Master Sensei, that's a great question because I feel like I have a lot of experience in that area. I want to give people a little bit of background that I think will help show people my triumphs to get to the point where I'm at. So, one of the things I didn't mention was, now that I'm thinking about this whole topic, is that originally, when I was younger, my mother experienced abuse. Um, in a domestic sense, right? So a lot of times the victim mentality is associated with um, sort of women being abused, from men and those sort of things. So that sort of happened in my household in Puerto Rico, and that was actually the reason. why I came to this country was because of that domestic abuse that my mother was experiencing. It caused my father to reevaluate, everything that was going on, and he made a decision that he was gonna he broke everything. Like there was a really bad night. I was too young to remember, but he basically broke everything in the house that we had, the TV, everything and anything that you can think of. So he felt bad about it. And because he felt bad about it, his way of making up for it was that we needed to leave, and it was one of the best things that we could do. He was around, a lot of people that were causing him to have just bad influence, drugs, alcohol, all those things. And that's where a lot of that stemmed from, was those bad addictions. So when he decided that he was going to buy us a plane ticket and come to this country, it was one of the best things that he could have ever done for us. So we left Puerto Rico, we came here, and we were a little bit better off than where we were, because America, New York has so many support systems that help us, but it can also cause the opposite effect, right? Perpetuate the fact that we are a victim, and that we have these systems in place that can keep us a victim. So I didn't want that to happen. And there was a series of events. I won't get into too much detail, but my father passed away. When my father passed away, I had to become the man of the household. And as a result of that, I couldn't pretend to be a victim or want to be a victim. I was poor for so long, I got tired of it. I wanted to get out of that. And the only way that I knew how to do that was to work hard in school. But as I was going through school, I was experiencing a lot of issues with my self-esteem. Again, going back to the poverty, not having the nicest clothes or the shoes, and those kinds of things, and not necessarily people making you, well, no, not for me specifically. I would say, making fun of me and things like that. But you could feel it. You could have a sense that those people over there in that group were better off than you, and that goes back to the jealousy, right, with the victim mentality. But going through that period when I was younger, I always wanted to come out of it no matter what, right? There was always going to be an end goal, that I was going to get out of that, and that I was going to have money. So my first job was at McDonald's. And for a lot of people, that's that's it's a job, but it was going to be the sort of step stool, or stepping stone, that I needed to get out and have money in my pocket, because I was tired of going to my mom, and she would always provide, and sometimes she didn't have the money, right? So I can't blame her, because first off, she's hearing impaired, so there's not much she can do. There's not a lot of work that she can get and things like that. So it was up to me, right? I had to take responsibility for the fact that I'm not going to be on welfare and all these other programs. I'm going to get out of that, and I'm going to make as much money as I want to. It's not just about the money, but that's a part of it. It's that mentality, that environment, that you can't reach above a certain uh, place, and that's it. That's it. That's as far as you go, sir. You're not going to go any further than that. So I didn't want that to happen to me. So I made sure I studied as hard, and my mom was always on top of me to make sure, that I was always going to school and doing my schoolwork and things like that. And finally, I started to see the light right at the end of the tunnel. When you're in a tunnel, you can't see what's going on. You just know that you have to get out, right? But you don't know which end it's going to be, if it's going to be the front or the end. And for me, I knew I was going to keep going no matter what to get out of it. And so, you know, um, in sort of reading here, in terms of going from victim to victor, I think a lot for me has been that I've always wanted to be the victor and not the victim. So I was able to recognize, that I can't blame other people. I can't complain. I can't rationalize that, this is not happening because of this, right? Because it's my fault, or I mean, other people's fault. This is my fault. I have to take responsibility for my own behaviors, my own ethics and morals and values. So that's what I would say, Sensei. That's helped me to get out of that, is that I recognized where I was, and that's not a place where I wanted to be.
There you go. And thank you very much. So, one of the ways to get out of the victim mentality to a victorious mentality is by claiming your power and choosing responsibility. All right. And express through consistent actions. Okay. You want to lose weight? Great. Be consistent. Don't do it for one day. And you don't have to go into a crash diet. Small, small goals. All right. Like I mentioned, 1 minute a day. Okay. Instead of having 3 meals of fast food today, have two and one salad in between. But try to and then do that for a few days, and then continue to add more to it. Okay, one step at a time. Don't think of everything right now is immediate gratification, and we forget that there's a journey to everything. So understand that there's a journey. Stay consistent, so that you can go ahead and handle your needs. This will build your self-esteem. Recognize the victim mentality. Okay, when you have that thought process, oh, why me? Why is this happening to me? Stop it immediately, because and retrain your brain so that you can you can interrupt the blaming and complaining, and you can start rationalizing ways of getting out or of addressing that goal or that challenge. Begin to love who you are. Okay, and when you say things, you're so stupid, you keep fucking up over and over again for years, you're gonna believe it. So when you stop thinking that way, reverse it, okay, and say how loving you are, okay, and that you're flexible and you're willing to learn new ways of living. Uh, be strong and trusting, as well as confident in your abilities. All right. No matter what your mind is thinking. So if it's telling you, don't do this, sensei, don't do this, sensei, control that and do the offset and go ahead and do it. You need to create new habits. You need to create new ways of doing things. When you're accustomed to doing things one way, that's your reactive approach. You need to create a new way so that can be your new reactive approach. Know some values. Create values and stick to them. Okay, so you can make better choices. Okay, and the behavior that you engage. Okay, I will not allow people to talk to me this way. Okay, stick to that. I will not allow myself to talk to myself this way. Stick to that. Um, commit to and be loyal to yourself, and try to live by these new principles of honor. That way, you can start creating you can promote well-being for yourself as well as everyone. Uh, Try to create a vision of yourself as someone that's impeccable and that is driven by honor and integrity. Okay, these are the values that I'm going to follow. But remember, it's going to be hard. You're not going to just adapt a victorious mentality overnight. It took you years to adapt a victim mentality. It might take you years to adapt a victorious mentality. So be forgiven to yourself when you screw up, and then start again. All right. Another thing that perhaps that might be able to help you is help others. By you understanding that you have strengths, that you can accomplish goals by helping others, you can then realize that maybe now you have the strength and the confidence to help yourself. So again, I'm gonna say one more time: uh, break that thumb of that like button, okay? If you like this episode, I hope everyone today had a wonderful experience learning by some of our personal experience from Master Roshi and Sensei. And what we want to do is next week we want to talk about our two brains. Okay, you've heard this all the time, the imposter syndrome. Okay, and we're going to talk about how we can address our imposter syndrome. How can we address our two brains so that way we can only listen to one? Um, Master Roshi, any final words?
I just want to say thank you to everybody that's listening in. We always appreciate you, taking the time out of your day to listen to some of the information that we put together, and I hope that it's useful to you as it is to us. And make sure you break the thumb off that like button, like Sensei said, and we will see you next week.
See you next week, everyone, and thanks again for spending your afternoon with us. Thank you.